Alaska doesn't begin the way you expect it to. Most places reveal themselves gradually. A highway sign, a shift in architecture, a subtle change in the color of the soil. Alaska doesn't work like that. The first time you cross into it, whether flying low over the rainforest coast of the southeast panhandle or driving the Alaska Highway through the Yukon Mountains, there's a moment when the scale simply stops making sense. The mountains are too large, the rivers are too wide, the sky sits too low and too heavy, as though pressing down on the land to hold something in. And the silence, if you step far enough from any engine and just stop moving, has physical weight, not an absence of sound, a presence of something older than sound. Alaska is the largest state in the United States. That sentence sounds like a textbook fact until you sit with the numbers. 1.7 million square kilometers. If you placed Alaska over the lower 48, it would stretch from the Atlantic coast well past the Rocky Mountains. It contains 17 of the 20 highest mountain peaks in the country, more coastline than all other American states combined, and approximately 100,000 glaciers holding more ice than Switzerland. The total population is around 733,000 people, fewer than the city of Austin, Texas, spread across a territory the size of France, Germany, and the United Kingdom placed side by side. A dot labeled town on an Alaska map might represent 47 people, with the nearest other dot 200 miles away on a road that doesn't exist. Nobody warns you that Alaska will make you feel irrelevant this quickly, and this completely. The geography doesn't agree with itself. The southeastern panhandle is temperate rainforest, towering Sitka spruce and western hemlock, glaciers sliding directly into saltwater fjords, fishing towns where it rains more than 150 inches a year, and mountains rise so directly from the water that there's no flat ground left for a road. Juneau is the state capital and the only capital city in the United States that cannot be reached by road from anywhere else in the country. You fly in, or you take a boat. That's it. Move northwest into south-central Alaska and the landscape shifts completely. The Kenai Peninsula juts into the Gulf of Alaska with glaciers on one side and spruce forest on the other, and Anchorage sits at the head of Cook Inlet in the shadow of the Chugach Mountains. From certain streets, you can see peaks topping 13,000 feet. Not far away, right there, close enough to create a persistent sense that the city exists only by permission of the mountains behind it. Cross the Alaska Range, the curved spine separating South Central from the interior, and you descend into a different world. Black spruce, white spruce, birch, and vast stretches of muskeg that make summer overland travel nearly impossible without knowing exactly where to step. Fairbanks sits near the center of this interior, roughly 200 miles south of the Arctic Circle, and holds the largest temperature range of any American city. Minus 62 degrees Fahrenheit in winter, 99 degrees in summer, a 161-degree swing within a single year in the same place to the same people. Beyond the Brooks Range is the Arctic, the North Slope. The coastal plain running from the mountains to the Arctic Ocean, flat and treeless, permanently frozen beneath the surface to depths of hundreds of meters. For about 8 weeks, each summer the surface thaws just enough to produce a carpet of wildflowers and tundra shrubs before frost returns. Caribou herds of 200,000 animals cross this plain in migrations, among the largest land animal migrations still occurring anywhere on Earth. The nearest emergency room is a small aircraft ride away, and the weather decides when that aircraft flies. The light does things to people that are difficult to explain until you've lived through them. In Fairbanks on the winter solstice, the sun rises at 10:58 in the morning and sets at 2:41 in the afternoon. 3 hours and 43 minutes of dim, low-angle light. A particular blue-dark settles over the weeks surrounding the solstice. People who move here from warmer climates say they expected cold. They didn't expect to feel like they were slowly disappearing. The opposite is equally disorienting. In Utqiagvik, the northernmost city in the United States, The sun doesn't set at all between May 10th and August 2nd. 84 consecutive days of unbroken daylight. Children play outside at midnight, which looks exactly like 3 in the afternoon. Longtime residents sleep with blackout curtains so heavy that daytime becomes a concept rather than a condition. Visitors frequently don't sleep properly for the first week. The midnight sun is not a poetic expression. It's a physical condition that dismantles every normal relationship between a body and time. The people who thrive here tend to be people who've made a certain peace with the fact that this place will not adjust itself for them. The wildlife operates on a scale most people, even those who've spent years watching nature documentaries, are not prepared for. Brown bears of the Alaskan coast, feeding on salmon from July through October, can reach over 700 kilograms before entering their winter dens. At the McNeil River State Game Sanctuary, during the peak of the July salmon run, it's possible to watch more than 70 brown bears fishing the same stretch of river simultaneously, not behind glass. Just bears doing what they've done in this place for tens of thousands of years, close enough that you can hear water dripping from their fur. Nobody has been seriously injured there in over 5 decades of managed visitation. Alaskan moose are the largest subspecies in the world. A mature bull can stand 2 meters at the shoulder. During the September rut, they move through the boreal forest with extraordinary quiet. In Anchorage, moose wander through residential neighborhoods with complete indifference to traffic or human schedules. They eat ornamental shrubs from front yards. A moose blocking a driveway is not a remarkable event. It's a Tuesday in October. Alaska has between 7,000 and 11,000 wolves, the largest wild population in the United States. They range across every habitat type in the state, traveling in packs that cover 25 miles in a single day, hunting prey several times their individual size through strategies that require genuine planning. Wolves here are not a conservation symbol or a political debate. They're simply part of the land, efficient, adaptive, and entirely unconcerned with whatever humans are arguing about. But the animal that holds the entire ecosystem together, carrying nutrients from the open ocean to the highest elevations of the forest, is not the largest or the most dramatic. It's the salmon. 5 species of Pacific salmon return each year to Alaskan rivers. Millions of fish make this journey, returning from years at sea to the exact tributary where they were born, guided by magnetic sensitivity, olfactory memory, and mechanisms science hasn't fully explained. They navigate upstream against current and waterfall and bear and eagle, their bodies transforming as they go. Jaws reshaping, skin shifting color, organs repurposing for reproduction. They stop eating. They burn through everything stored during years in the ocean. They arrive at the place where they hatched, reproduce, and die. Their death is not an ending. It's a transfer. Bears drag carcasses into the forest, eagles drop pieces into the undergrowth, and the remains decompose, releasing marine nitrogen, originating in the open Pacific, into the soil. Scientists have extracted that oceanic nitrogen from the rings of spruce trees growing far from any river and traced it back to its source. The forest is partially built from the ocean, carried there by fish. When salmon populations decline, it's not only bears and eagles that lose a food source. The trees lose their fertilizer. The entire system begins shifting in ways that are difficult to reverse. The indigenous peoples of Alaska have managed their relationship with this system for at least 15,000 years, and they are not one people. They are many, each adapted with precision to a specific environment. The Inupiaq of the northern coast developed the technology to hunt bowhead whales from skin boats on the open Arctic Ocean, a practice requiring navigation, deep understanding of sea ice behavior, and a relationship with the animal that went beyond hunting into ceremony and memory. The Yupik of the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta built their lives around salmon and the careful reading of weather and river conditions where a single miscalculation could mean starvation before spring. The Athabascan peoples of the interior developed cultures organized around movement. following caribou, tracking fish runs, reading the boreal forest for signs no outside eye would ever learn to see. The Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshian of southeast Alaska built stratified societies with sophisticated art traditions that encoded ecological knowledge across generations in ways outsiders spent 2 centuries slowly beginning to understand. These cultures are present tense. The Inupiaq of Utqiagvik still conduct the spring whaling season, preparations beginning months before the ice conditions are right. The Yupik of the lower Yukon still practice subsistence fishing protected under Alaska state law, because for those families, the fish they catch is not tradition maintained for cultural reasons alone. It is the food supply. It is what gets them through February and March. Subsistence is a legal category in Alaska, describing a way of living that is neither nostalgic nor optional. In communities unreachable by road, approximately 300 of them, the cost of groceries reflects the full cost of flying them in by small aircraft. A gallon of milk in Bethel, on the Kuskokwim River, costs 3 times what it does in Anchorage. For a family on subsistence, harvest, and seasonal work, every salmon caught and every pound of moose meat in a September freezer is the calculation that determines whether February is survivable. Which brings you to Bush, Alaska. Not a place, but a condition. Roughly 300 communities sit entirely outside the road system. Some are so small that a satellite image shows a cluster of houses, a school, an airstrip, and nothing else for 50 miles in every direction. The only way in or out is a small aircraft. Alaska has more registered pilots per capita than any other state, and more small aircraft per person than anywhere in America. This is not aviation enthusiasm. This is infrastructure. Bush pilots fly in conditions that would ground commercial aircraft elsewhere. Low ceilings, icing, mountain passes fogged solid, reading weather from the look of clouds and the reports of pilots who came through 10 minutes earlier. The Alaska aviation fatality rate is historically several times the national average. That's a fact the aviation community here knows, has accepted, and decided not to let stop them. Because the alternative is that communities don't get supplied, and that means people don't make it through the winter. Anchorage is the city that Alaska built to prove it could have a city, and then wasn't entirely sure what to do with. It contains roughly 40% of the entire state's population, about 290,000 people, in a grid of streets and strip malls that looks, from the air, like it could be Boise or Colorado Springs. There are chain restaurants, big box stores, traffic jams on the Glen Highway during the morning commute, and a real estate market operating on the same logic as any Western American city. High demand, limited convenient land, prices that have risen faster than wages. And directly behind all of it, visible from almost every street in the city, are the Chugach Mountains. Peaks exceeding 13,000 feet with glaciers reaching almost to the tree line. And to the west, across Cook Inlet, the volcanic summits of the Alaska Range, including Redoubt and Iliamna, 2 active volcanoes that have erupted within living memory. The city and the wilderness are not adjacent in Anchorage. They interpenetrate. The Tony Knowles Coastal Trail runs along the edge of the city on the shore of Cook Inlet, and people jog it at sunrise while beluga whales occasionally surface in the water 100 meters away. Moose move through Midtown. Bears are tranquilized and relocated from neighborhoods regularly enough that the city maintains a standardized protocol for it. Not because it's dramatic, because it happens often enough to need a procedure. Anchorage is Alaska's largest city, but it is not Alaska's most Alaskan city. That distinction, in the minds of most interior residents, belongs to Fairbanks. Fairbanks sits in the center of the boreal interior, surrounded by forest and river valleys and a winter that arrives in October and stays until April. It is the second largest city in the state, with around 30,000 people, and it functions as the gateway to everything north of the Alaska Range. military installations, research stations, mining operations, and the roadless communities of the interior and Arctic. The University of Alaska Fairbanks, founded in 1917, is one of the leading research institutions for Arctic and subarctic sciences in the world. Permafrost research, atmospheric physics, Indigenous language preservation, studies that require instruments placed where winter temperatures drop below -50 and remain there for weeks. The university exists here, not despite the conditions, but because of them. This is the place you go when you need to understand what sustained cold actually does to a planet. And then there is Juneau. Juneau is the strangest capital city in the United States and one of the more unusual small cities of its size anywhere on Earth. 32,000 people. A harbor. A compact downtown compressed between mountains and water. A glacier. The Mendenhall. That ends just a few miles from residential neighborhoods, close enough that residents have watched it retreat noticeably over the span of their own lifetimes, and no road connecting it to anywhere else in Alaska, or anywhere else at all. You reach Juneau by aircraft or by ferry. There is no third option. State legislators flying in for the legislative session arrive by plane. The freight that stocks grocery store shelves arrives by barge. People who missed the last ferry and don't have plane tickets are simply not leaving today. The Alaska Marine Highway System, the state-operated ferry network threading through the islands and fjords of southeast Alaska, is not a tourist attraction, though tourists ride it. It is public infrastructure, the marine equivalent of the highway system, connecting communities that are otherwise islands in every sense of the word. The economy of Alaska has rested for 50 years on one thing, and nearly everyone in the state knows it, and many people in the state are quietly thinking about what comes next. Oil. The discovery of petroleum at Prudhoe Bay on the North Slope in 1968 was the largest oil field discovery in North American history at the time. What followed was the construction of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. 800 miles of insulated pipe carrying hot crude oil from the Arctic coast to the ice-free port of Valdez on Prince William Sound, crossing 3 mountain ranges, over 800 rivers and streams, and some of the most seismically active terrain on Earth. It was completed in 1977. At its peak production in the late 1980s, it was carrying 2 million barrels of oil per day. Today, that figure is around 450,000 barrels. Still significant, but a fraction of what it was. The oil funds approximately 1/3 of Alaska's state government budget. Alaska has no state income tax. It has no state sales tax. What it has is the Alaska Permanent Fund, established in 1976 to save a portion of oil revenues for the future. And every year, the state distributes a dividend from that fund to every legal resident of Alaska. Every man, woman, and child in the state receives a check. In recent years, between $1,000 and $2,000 per person, simply for being a resident. A family of 4 receives 4 separate dividend payments. In a state where the cost of living in rural communities can be genuinely difficult to manage, that payment is not symbolic. It is rent money. It is heating oil money. It is part of the annual calculation of whether this year is financially survivable. Production has been declining steadily since its peak, and the deposits that remain are more expensive to access. The debate over drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, a protected coastal plain east of Prudhoe Bay that the oil industry has wanted access to for decades, has been one of the most persistent resource management conflicts in American political history. On one side, the industry, certain state politicians, and the argument that Alaska needs the revenue. On the other, environmental organizations and many Alaska Native communities whose subsistence practices and cultural territories overlap directly with the proposed development area. The debate has not been resolved, and it will not be resolved quickly because it is not actually a debate about oil. It is a debate about what Alaska is for and who gets to decide. Fishing is the second economic pillar, and in some ways the more deeply embedded one, because it is older. Commercial fishing out of ports like Kodiak, Dutch Harbor in the Aleutian Islands, and Petersburg in southeast Alaska employs thousands of people directly and many thousands more in processing, transport, and support industries. The Bering Sea crab fishery, made widely known outside Alaska by a television series that followed fishing vessels through its most dangerous season, operates in conditions that are exactly as difficult as they appear. Vessels work in seas where wave heights routinely exceed 30 feet and air temperatures can turn wet gear into a coating of ice faster than a person can respond. Commercial fishing is consistently one of the most dangerous occupations in the United States, and within that category, the highest fatality rates belong to Alaska. The pollock fishery of the eastern Bering Sea is among the largest single-species fisheries in the world by volume. Alaskan pollock ends up in most processed fish products sold in American grocery stores: fish sticks, fast food fish sandwiches, the seafood paste called surimi, caught in enormous quantities from trawlers operating out of Dutch Harbor and processed onshore. Dutch Harbor, a port on Unalaska Island in the eastern Aleutians, has been the top commercial fishing port in the United States by volume of catch for multiple years running. It is also one of the most remote industrial facilities in the country, thousands of miles from the nearest major city, on a volcanic island in the middle of the North Pacific, in weather that makes outdoor work genuinely dangerous for most of the year. At the center of the Alaska Range, visible from more than 200 miles away on clear days, stands Denali. At 6,190 meters above sea level, it is the highest peak in North America. The name comes from the Athabascan language and means something close to the Great One or the High One. The mountain was officially renamed from Mount McKinley to Denali in 2015 after decades of effort by Alaska Native groups and the state government, a change that was nationally controversial for reasons that revealed a great deal about whose relationship to the land was considered definitive. In Alaska, it had been Denali for a long time before the federal government agreed. Climbers from around the world attempt the summit every spring, with several hundred making the effort from the main base camp on the Kahiltna Glacier. The mountain presents altitude challenges comparable to 800-meter peaks in the Himalayas, extreme cold. Temperatures near the summit can drop to minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit, and storm systems that develop quickly and can trap climbers in tents on exposed ridges for days. The summit success rate in most years is around 50%. The mountain keeps the rest. The Aurora Borealis appears in the skies above interior and northern Alaska from late August through April. And away from city light, it is one of the most visually extraordinary natural events it is possible to witness with the naked eye. Green, most commonly. Sometimes red or purple or white along the edges. Curtains and bands of light that move and fold and collapse and rebuild over the course of minutes, directly overhead, in a sky so cold and clear that every star is sharp and close. The physics of it is well understood. Charged particles from the solar wind, interaction with atmospheric molecules at altitude. But understanding the physics doesn't change what it does to a person standing on frozen ground at minus 30, watching the entire sky move. People who see it for the first time tend to go very quiet. People who have seen it 100 times tend to go quiet too. In rural communities without light pollution, the aurora is not an event you travel to see. It is a condition of living here. Children grow up checking the sky the way people in other places check the weather. On a strong night in February, the colors move across the full arc of the sky in waves that make it genuinely difficult to look away. Local elders in some Athabascan communities have described the aurora as the spirits of ancestors playing games across the sky, a description that, whatever its metaphysical status, captures something accurate about the feeling of watching it. The Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race runs more than 1,000 miles from Anchorage to Nome every March, following a route originally used as a supply trail to goldfields and later as a mail route to remote communities along the Yukon and the coast. It crosses two mountain ranges, the the frozen surface of the Yukon River, and the wind-exposed coast of Norton Sound, where blizzards can reduce visibility to zero and temperatures drop to levels that threaten both human and dog. Teams of mushers and their dogs, typically 14 dogs per team at the start, complete the race in 8 to 15 days depending on conditions. The course record sits just under 8 days. Winning requires the ability to manage a team of animals across 1,000 miles of wilderness, make decisions about rest and pace in conditions of sleep deprivation and cold, and know the trail well enough to navigate it in the dark. The Iditarod is not a sport Alaska performs for outsiders. It is a formalized expression of something that shaped this place long before Alaska was a state. Sled dogs were transportation here. They were the technology that connected communities across the interior in winter, that moved mail and medicine and people through terrain where no other method worked. The race is both a competition and a kind of ceremony. A deliberate acknowledgement that this relationship between humans and dogs, built over thousands of years of shared survival in extreme cold, is worth marking. Spectators who stand at checkpoints in remote villages to watch teams arrive in the middle of the night in temperatures far below zero are not simply watching a sporting event. They are watching a form of travel that kept their grandparents alive. Alaska is changing in ways that the people who live here can see directly, without needing scientific reports to confirm what is already visible outside their windows. The permafrost is thawing, not everywhere and not completely, but in places that have been frozen for thousands of years. Buildings in some interior communities are tilting and sinking as the ground beneath their foundations softens. Roads buckle and develop waves. Spruce forests in some regions are dying from beetle infestations that were previously controlled by cold winters, but now survive increasingly mild temperatures year after year. The Mendenhall Glacier outside Juneau retreated by close to 100 meters in a single recent year. Sea ice in the Arctic forms later and breaks up earlier, extending the open water season in ways that affect hunting patterns and expose coastlines to storm surges that sea ice once absorbed. Shishmaref is a village on a barrier island in the Chukchi Sea that has been inhabited for centuries. The permafrost beneath the island is degrading. The sea ice that historically protected the coast from winter storms now forms later and thinner, and the storms that arrive before the ice is established are eroding the shoreline at a rate that has made the current location of the village unsustainable. The community has voted to relocate. That process is expensive, complicated, and slow. In the meantime, people are watching the edge of the island move. The people most immediately and most severely affected by these changes are the people who have lived here longest. The Alaska Native communities of the Arctic coast and the interior rivers are watching their food systems, their infrastructure, and in some cases their actual land change faster than any adaptation they built for. They did not create the conditions driving those changes. That gap between who produced the problem and who absorbs the cost first is not a talking point in Alaska. It is a physical reality that shows up in crumbling riverbanks and thinning ice and salmon that arrive late or not at all in rivers where they have returned for thousands of years. And yet Alaska remains, and it remains on its own terms. The bears still gather at McNeil River in July. The caribou herds still cross the North Slope in May. The bowhead whales still move through the Bering Strait in spring. The salmon still return. In reduced numbers in some drainages, in healthy numbers in others, in uncertain numbers everywhere, because the salmon do not consult a thermometer. They read the water, and something in the water still says, keep going. The people still live here, all 733,000 of them, in a state that is too large to fully comprehend, too cold to casually dismiss, and too complex to reduce to a single image. The fishermen of Dutch Harbor still go out in Bering Sea conditions that would cancel most things most people consider acceptable weather. The bush pilots still fly their Cessnas between settlements so small they barely show on maps. The Inupiaq of Utqiagvik still go out onto the spring ice with the same seriousness and the same preparations that their parents and grandparents used, listening for the sounds the ice makes, reading the conditions, waiting for the bowhead to appear. Alaska teaches something that isn't available in quieter places, not to visitors who pass through, but to anyone who stays long enough to be taught. It is a specific and unromantic understanding of how small a human being is in relation to everything that predates us. Not the kind of smallness that makes you feel worthless, the kind that makes you accurate, the kind that reminds you what the correct proportions actually are. In a world that has increasingly arranged itself around the premise that nature exists to serve human experience, Alaska remains one of the places on Earth where that premise is corrected clearly and without sentiment. The mountains don't lean in for a better photograph. The bears don't move off the river because the viewing platform is close. The darkness in December does not soften because someone finds it emotionally difficult. The cold doesn't negotiate. This land was here long before any of us arrived. In some form, altered and shifting, and still enormous, it will be here long after the last of us leaves. That thought, held honestly, is not depressing. It is clarifying. If this journey through Alaska left you with something, a feeling, a question, a place you want to look up, then subscribe to my channel and stay with us. There are places on this planet that are still that large, that cold, that old, and that uncompromising. We are going to all of them. Hit the like button if you made it this far. Leave a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from. Every single one gets read. And if there's a place you want us to explore next, name it. We'll go there.